All right, everybody, welcome back. Our lesson for this week, we are going to be talking about what it means to be an ally. So last time we explored friendships in middle school, and we came up with some ideas for how these two students could make new friends. So what were some of the main points of last week's lesson? We learned that empathy helps us understand how it feels to be someone who wants to make friends. We also talked about some different advice and tips for these people who want to make new friends. And we learned that in middle school, one possible idea is to find people that like the same interests as you by joining sports or clubs or different teams and then connecting with people who like the same interests as you. So, we have been talking about students connecting with each other through friendship. Friends also give each other support. Another way to give support and be connected, which is different from being a friend, is being an ally. So, what is an ally? An ally is someone who consciously decides to support another person because it's the right thing to do. Being an ally is empathy in action. As we mentioned earlier, empathy includes understanding how someone is feeling and then responding in a thoughtful and positive way. So let's hear from students talking about how they have been allies.
I was walking in the hallway and I seen a girl crying and I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that girls were like talking about her for no reason and making her look bad in front of somebody that she liked. And we never really talked before this, and then we became friends, and I gave her advice and I told her that she should ignore them and they weren't worth her time, and just act like they're not there. And that made her feel better a little bit.
It was in 6th grade when this new kid came to our school from Hawaii, and he didn't know like his way around like I did in 5th grade, and so I just helped him around, like showed him, what the older kid did for me, showed him where the library is and the main office is, and showed him which classes gave the most homework.
I was an ally to someone once when we were in language arts and we had a writing assignment. And I can't remember what the assignment was, but I was sitting in a desk next to someone, like kind of next to someone who was having a lot of trouble, and she didn't know where to start. Like, she had planned her whole thing, but she didn't know where to start, like where to begin writing, and like she didn't know how to spell some words and stuff. And I had already finished mine, so I just kind of walked up and say, "Hey, I finished mine, dude. Do you need some help?" And I just kind of like just started saying, well, I started by doing this, and will you spell that like this, and different things. And I kind of use mine as an example, like, oh yeah, that is hard. Well, I just put it like that, and different things. Or you could use this word instead to make it more interesting, and kind of in that way I helped her.
One kid, that I know, he got really sad because some kids were kind of picking on him, and then later they were making fun of him because he like kind of cried, and I just said, how would you feel if you were being picked on like that? I think you would feel really sad too. So I don't think you should be making fun of him because you would probably react the same way.
Yeah. So let's think, what kinds of people do you think you could be an ally to? This is a good one to write down so that when you have the discussion with your class, you can chip in and share some of your ideas. So maybe there is a classmate that you don't know very well that needs an ally. That could be an option. Or maybe a new student. So one thing about being an ally is that you don't have to be friends with that person to be an ally, and you maybe don't even have to know them to be an ally. Maybe an example of this is if you are at the park and you see somebody, another student that you don't know, and they might be having a tough time, maybe they're crying, and if you go up to them and offer support, that's being an ally, even though they're not necessarily your friend and maybe you don't even know them yet. So, what other kinds of situations do you think you could be an ally to someone? Maybe if somebody is being bullied, that's an example that I like to think of, is if you see somebody at school, if it's your friend, if it's somebody maybe you don't even know yet, you can be an ally by maybe sticking up for them, maybe checking in with them and asking if they're okay, and just showing that you care about them and that you want them to be doing well. So, some of these situations where being an ally can be a little tricky is if the issue that the person is working through is kind of tough and maybe you feel like you need some support from an adult. So, what would be in a situation like where you feel like you would get an adult involved? Maybe one example that we talk about as counselors is if you're worried about somebody hurting themselves or hurting someone else, then that would be an important time to have an adult step in because that's a situation where students alone might not be able to kind of handle the situation. So in this instance, it would be important to tell someone at home if that's where you're at, or if it's something maybe school related, you can talk to your teacher, you can ask to be connected with the counselor, and then we can check in with you and or that student that you're worried about. So what are some other day-to-day situations where you might be an ally to someone? Think about that and write down some examples of how you think you could be an ally. Maybe an example is if you see someone, maybe you go to after school and you're working on homework and you see somebody who looks like they're getting maybe frustrated with, working on their homework, it would be an ally type of thing to do to go check in and say, hey, do you need any help with your homework? Do you want me to sit here and do my homework with you? So now we are going to do some brainstorming. I want you to choose one of the situations that you thought of before, a different situation, maybe one that you've encountered in the past where you felt like you could be an ally. And then what you're going to do is maybe you can talk to a sibling or someone at home, or if you want to just write down some notes on your own, then we're going to think about how you could support someone in that situation. So I kind of already gave the example, but let's say you're at the after school program and you see someone who's struggling with their homework. One example would be to go up and just ask if they want you to help. Maybe you can say, "Hey, do you want me to get one of the leaders and, see if they could help us with our homework?" Or even just say, "Hey, do you want to take a break from homework and do something fun for a couple of minutes?" So think of those examples and talk about that with someone at home or just write down some notes and be ready to discuss it with your class when you do the discussion. So we have been doing some exploring on how to make friends and be an ally to someone. So what are some of the main skills that we have learned over the past 2 weeks? We learned that you can use empathy skills to make new friends. So, what were some of the tips that you came up with on how to make new friends? Maybe introducing yourself, going to clubs that have people with the same interests, and just putting yourself out there. We also learned that empathy helps us to act in a positive and a thoughtful way towards others. So, we have experience using empathy when we think about other people and their situations. And then we think to ourselves, hey, if I was in that situation, how would I want someone to respond to me? So when we looked at Stella and Leo, and we learned that they were having a hard time making friends, we thought to ourselves, if I was having a hard time making a friend, what would I do? And then how would I respond? And that is the advice that you can give to Stella and Leo. And you can think to yourself, hey, if I was at a new school, I would really want someone to come up to me and ask how I was doing. And so if you see someone that's new at school, that's what you can do, because that's how you would like to be treated. Another way to show empathy to others is to be an ally. An ally consciously decides to support another person because it's the right thing to do. So you have definitely been practicing and learning lots of different skills for how to respect others' ideas and how to use empathy. And you're going to be able to practice these even more when you have your discussion with your teacher and your classmates. So remember the skills that we've talked about, like active listening. So in a discussion, that could look like listening to the ideas that another classmate came up with, and instead of wanting to interrupt them and butt in and say, hey, that was my idea, you could say, hey, I really love that idea. I thought about that too. So keep in mind these skills when you're having your virtual discussions with your teachers and your classmates. All righty, everyone. I will see you next time. Have a great day.